It's your brother. Sherlock has been kidnapped.
Henry Cavill to me is an actor whose career just doesn't make any sense. Because when you look at him, you'd think his overall filmography career would be much better. You would also think that just by looking at him, he would be a Hollywood producer's wet dream. And it just seems like Hollywood have no idea what to do with him. Lately, his career just seems like it's been filled with a lot of betrayal, a lot of bad luck, and his career is just reduced to either being on a Netflix movie or a Guy Ritchie movie. The third Enola Holmes movie comes out. I've only ever seen the first one. I have no interest in watching the second one or even this one. I don't know, just like I watched the trailer because I saw it on Twitter. I don't know. It just feels like in this movie, I know the movies, they're not about Sherlock Holmes, but it just seems like in this movie, his character's just been reduced to being used as a kidnapping device. And it kind of just tells stories of just how his career has ended up, which is sad because I like Henry Cavill a lot. I just feel like he should have a franchise, a huge show or a huge movie to himself. And it seemed like once he got that Superman role, that's like where his career was going. I actually think he's a much better actor than people give him credit for just because of like his overall look. His role or his villain in the Mission Impossible Fallout movie, I think besides Philip Seymour Hoffman's villain, I feel like he's probably up there as one of the best villains in that franchise. And I felt like in that movie, like he didn't just hold his own against Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise, whether you like him or not, Tom Cruise is actually like a really good actor that I don't think he gets enough credit for as well. And I don't think people put Tom Cruise in that category of being a really good actor, but he is actually a really good actor. Henry Cavill held his own against him, and not only just held his own, in that movie you felt like he was like this physically imposing force, where if you compare it to someone like Philip Seymour Hoffman's villain, where he played a more sociopathic, more tactical mastermind type villain. Because prior to that in the Mission Impossible movies, Mission Impossible villains, they weren't as physically imposing as Henry Cavill's was, and it just kind of showed in that movie when he's given a great script with a great director, he's a real like on-screen presence. And around the same time he did another movie called The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I feel like people don't talk about enough, and probably because it's got Armie Hammer in it, he's not really a talked about person anymore. But if you haven't seen this movie, you should 100% go and watch it, because I almost feel like this movie is kind of like Henry Cavill's James Bond redemption. Like, he's really good in this, because the movie also like shows that he's more than just like a physical powerhouse, and it almost gave me sort of like similar vibes to Archer.
Was that sarcasm?
No, sir.
Oh, good, because your opinion matters. And since you seem unclear on the concept, that was sarcasm.
Well played, sir.
Thank you.
He actually had like really good comedic timing, and he kind of had that like suave, charismatic charm that maybe like a classic James Bond would have. And I feel like a lot of people, when they see this movie, they really enjoy it because of Henry Cavill. And I really feel like these two movies, like the Mission Impossible movie and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., really shows that he's a much more capable actor than general viewers perceive him. And these movies really show that he isn't the problem when it comes to the movies, and especially with the recent movie choices he's made. It's more that projects he's taking on, or the people handling those projects, those are the problem. And they're not bringing the best out of Henry Cavill. And it really did seem like for a long time Hollywood wanted to do something with him. Very early on in his career, he auditioned to be James Bond, which was taken over by Daniel Craig, and it was just because he was too young at the time. So when he finally got that stable role, which we all know it to be Superman, he was just dealt the unluckiest hand. Because looking at him, he is the perfect Superman. I really like David Cornsweet. I love David Cornsweet's Superman. I think he's the right person to carry on that Superman role. But looking at Henry Cavill and the overall kind of person he is Superman. So many people, like so many Snyder fans or like fans of the Snyderverse, like they defend this franchise. It's like a hill they'll die on. But it really seemed like at the time, Zack Snyder didn't really know what to do with that Superman. I love Man of Steel. It's one of my all-time favorite superhero movies. I think it's like the best movie coming out of the Snyderverse. But I feel like Zack Snyder and the type of movies he makes, he kind of forced Henry Cavill's Superman to be in like this very small or narrow box where he just wanted his version of Superman, or he wanted Henry Cavill to play the Superman to be more of a physical powerhouse, more of a brooding, dark version of Superman, because I feel like Henry Cavill wanted to play a more hopeful and a more traditional Superman. Kind of like David Cornsweet's Superman. I really feel like Henry Cavill wanted to do more of that kind of Superman rather than the way Zack Snyder portrayed Superman. And you can see this maybe more of Joss Whedon's Justice League. Kind of feel like if you compare it to with the MCU, where it felt like they had more of a plan, especially when Robert Downey Jr. was cast as Iron Man, like they knew where they were going to take that franchise. I really feel like Zack Snyder and DC, they had no idea where they wanted to take that universe. And you can really tell with the decisions that were made after Man of Steel came out, because there was so much like corporate mismanagement at the time. And it seemed like everything was changing. There was going to be a Man of Steel 2, and then it changed to, no, that's not happening anymore. And then it moved to Batman versus Superman. Superman, which was a very rushed movie. There's a lot of people out there and a lot of Zack Snyder defenders out there treat that movie as a cult classic. It's a fucking terrible movie, and no one will convince me otherwise. It's the worst representation of a comic book movie, especially for Superman. It has that one 5-minute scene of Batman in the warehouse, but besides that, it is a terrible movie. It really felt like at that time, it was not a movie they wanted to make, and they should have just kept going with Man of Steel 2. In that movie, it really showed that Zack Snyder really didn't understand the character of Superman. And they had an actor like Henry Cavill, and they had no idea how to portray Superman. And then you kind of had just the Justice League movie, the mess that went on with that. The CGI mustache, how that movie was handled, and then the reception it received, and how it just became an internet meme. That was just the perfect metaphor. It just kind of like perfectly showcased like the disaster of the Snyderverse or the DC universe at the time. After Justice League, that was kind of like the last time we saw him as Superman. We thought he was coming back. There was not much news around it, but like myself and a lot of fans, everyone wanted to see him back as Superman because we knew there was something there and we knew how perfect he was as Superman. The whole Black Adam stuff, and that was kind of just the perfect ending to a terrible superhero career, and not as a result of Henry Cavill, but just how poorly mismanaged it was. Because in 2022, he jumped to his Instagram, he kind of teased he was coming back, and The Rock teased him to come back. There was all this kind of stuff going on, and then he showed up in the end credit scene, and it was just basically The Rock using Henry Cavill as a political chess piece to kind of take over the DC universe, which failed miserably.
Let's let them know something. Things will never be the same, because the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
And then when James Gunn took over, it just seemed like he was so pissed off at the whole situation and he just got rid of everyone. And because of the whole fallout of that, Henry Cavill was punished for something he really didn't do. And it just seems like the past couple of years just seemed like he's going from one bad luck situation to the next. It just seems like everything's just not going the way he wants it to. There was the whole situation with The Witcher. I was a huge fan of The Witcher show. I loved this show. Henry Cavill was a huge fan of The Witcher books, and he left the show. And the way it was kind of portrayed is he was the difficult person on the set. It later came out that because he was so in love with the books, he just wanted the show to correctly respect the IP that he loves. But instead, the writers and the showrunners of that show, they just openly mocked or publicly mocked Henry Cavill and just chose to deviate from the original source material. So Henry Cavill just decided to preserve his integrity and step away, which I can respect. I'm someone that thinks the preservation of original source material is important to telling the story. So I'm like him. I can't stand it when people deviate so much from the original source material. And it probably was an easy thing for him to do, because that was probably something he was super passionate about. And it really just seems like since then, he's just making one bad decision after the next, like with his movie choices. And a lot of his movies recently have been box office bombs, which probably doesn't help when a studio is deciding which actors they want to choose. And when they look at Henry Cavill and all of his movies are bombing, like they're probably thinking, stay away from him. He's the problem. When it's not necessarily him, it's the people handling these projects. He did that Argyle movie, which I don't really remember it, to be honest. Like I watched it and it was very unmemorable. And then he did that movie, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which was okay. It was an okay movie. And then he's got that movie In the Grey with Jake Gyllenhaal, which also doesn't look great. And it just seems like these movies he's making aren't recovering the cost of the budget that's been put into making them. And now it just seems like his career's been downgraded to these Enola Holmes movies, which he doesn't have a prominent role in it. And that's fine, because it's not a Sherlock Holmes movie. The movie is about Enola Holmes or Millie Bobby Brown's character, and that's fine. He's a supporting character. Like, it's her movie. But they kind of make his Sherlock Holmes the opposite of what Arthur Conan Doyle's original Sherlock Holmes is like. And this third movie, it's just like, who's watching this? Are there people out there, like, I'm genuinely curious, like, are there people out there who's like genuinely excited to see this movie? Like, why is this movie being made? Like, I know Millie Bobby Brown has like a contract with Netflix. I watched the trailer and that's all I need to know about the movie. I have no interest in watching it. Maybe I'm writing off too early, but it looks terrible. It just seems like they're taking Henry Cavill, who at one point in his career was a physical powerhouse in movies, and also someone who went toe to toe with Tom Cruise, acting wise as well, and held his own against someone like Tom Cruise, to just like a damsel in distress. Kind of just showcases the ultimate metaphor of his career that's stagnated. He's someone that should be a leading man that's trapped in a supporting person's prison. And it does seem like he's got other projects coming out, like he's doing the Highlander movie or the Highlander remake, which I'm actually interested in, because the original Highlander movie, it's a movie that like, I've never seen a movie before and I have no idea how I felt about it. I couldn't tell if I loved it or I hated it. And I know that's a movie that has a lot of fans divided. There's a lot of people that love that movie, but there's also a lot of people that hate hate that movie. I feel like if you're going to remake a classic, that's one of the few movies I think is acceptable. And it's got a good director behind it, Chad Stahelski, who gave us the John Wick franchise. I'm very interested in it. And then he's also heavily involved with the Warhammer show, which is something he's been trying to get made for a long time. He's very hands-on with it. He's a producer on it. I'm interested in that as well because of how important original IPs to him, or original source material is to him. It kind of feels like this is a last ditch effort or a last hope for him. I really hope it works out for him because like he's someone that I feel like should be leading a huge franchise or a huge show. Maybe giving him his own franchise that he can have control over might be what he needs. It does seem like his prime years are being wasted.